My name's Corey Enderby, and this is I'm going to try to do part 2 of my testimony. Ever since I've decided to record my testimonies, all hell has broken loose in my life. I mean, I'm not joking with you. It has been absolutely insane. When I recorded part 1, my computer got hacked. I had to wipe everything completely clean. I lost stuff on my computer. My bank account was hacked into. All these charges were put on my account. When I started to record part 2, the other day I recorded part 2. I already did it once, and it came out terrible. It was there was so much oppression going on in the atmosphere. Even here in the basement where I'm recording this, I could see I could see movement. I could see things going on in around me. And the night that I recorded part 2, I had a dream that night that I could feel oppression all around me. But that night, I in the dream, I was suspended in the air, and I was getting my block knocked off by a couple of demons. There was one in front of me this way, and there was one over here, and they were firing arrows at me, and they were sticking it to me. They were getting me really good, and I was getting my butt kicked. And I woke up. It was just before 2 a.m., and I started to pray and seek the Lord and read the Bible, and I slept better. I had what I think was a prophetic dream right after that. But and then just all kinds of things are happening in my life. All kinds of things are going wrong right now that don't normally go wrong. I've had a very smooth since I've started this business a few years ago. It's been pretty smooth. I've had all kinds of things go wrong. Things are breaking down. Things are going wrong at work. I mean, I'm getting attacked. This is really bad. And it's been extremely hard. But, to live is Christ and to die is gain. And the Lord gave me a Bible verse when I decided to wage war against the enemy with these testimonies, that he who wishes to save his life will lose it. So I'm going to press on here. I'm going to record this next part of my testimony. The second part, when I recorded it last time, it was like 2 hours long. It was really long. So I have no idea how I'm going to try to cut it down to where it's more manageable. It might be a 3-part series, because the good stuff is towards the end, and there's some stuff in the middle that kind of explains everything up to that point that I also think is important. But in part 1, where I left off, I had just seen Jesus the second time in his glorified form, and I continued in sin. Even after that vision of seeing Jesus like that in his glorified form, I continued in complete stupidity, and I continued to use cough syrup, and just like they did in Dallas when everything started falling in on me, everything started falling in on me again in Midland. I lost my job. I started losing friends, people that cared about me. It just seemed like my world was crumbling around me. And at some point, late October, it was really cold outside. But I definitely had demons in me again. They were in me again because I had gone back to the cough syrup. So they were there all over again. And this is what I think. I think that they wanted to kill me. And at the end of October, I got this wild idea. Look, everything's falling apart in Midland. I just need to go. I'm gonna just start walking down the highway. I actually took a bike. I said, I'm going to bike and walk and just travel up to Canada. And that's what I did. I set out and started to do that. And the first, I think it might have been the second night, first or second night when I got out there. The first full night, I think, when I got out there, the first night, I almost froze to death. Here I am on all this cough syrup. I don't know what I'm doing, kind of out of my mind. And I'm out there and I sleep outside. It's freezing cold, below freezing, very cold. And I make it through the night, but when I get up the next morning, I'm doing this, violently shivering. And I didn't know what was wrong with me. I had no clue. I was like, what is wrong? Why am I shivering like this? And I even looked to my right, and there was some brush. I was right on the side of the highway, a smaller highway. But I saw some brush, along about maybe waist high. And I saw this, it was bizarre, it was surreal. I saw this coyote just kind of dip in and dip out of the brush and back into the brush, and he was just staring at me as he did that. And I thought, whoa, am I dying? Can they sense that I'm dying? I mean, that's what I'm thinking. Are they trying to eat me for lunch and for breakfast? And anyway, I'm shivering really bad, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what's going on? I can't stop. I can't get warm. And it was hypothermia is what it was. And believe it or not, I began to hear the voice of the Lord. And he said, why are you doing this again? And I had a lot of good reasons. It wasn't just to take off to Canada. Somehow I thought about what he said, and I decided that I had some good reasons to try and hit the road and go out there into the wild, if you will. And one of those reasons was I would be broke. I would be very poor. I wouldn't have access to cough syrup anymore. Hey, I could get out here away from the money and away from everything for a while, clear my head and get off of this stuff, since I couldn't get into Teen Challenge. And that was one of my reasons. Another reason was, I wanted to see my kids. I miss my kids. From the time I left Dallas and I got out there to Midland, I mean, it had been a while since I seen my kids, and I was feeling pretty low about my position at that time. And I had no car, no way to see my kids, no job anymore, and I was really low, still hooked on drugs, and I wanted to see my kids so bad. When I worked for the Salvation Army, I had a job through them back in Midland. I was part of the litter abatement team. And basically what that was I would just go out and I would pick up trash on the side of the highways, and they had different accounts for that. And we would do that, and every now and then I'd find little cards, little Pokemon or, what have you, little kitty cards, and I would mail them that stuff. I was so broke that I would literally mail them a card that I found on the ground, just to let them know that I loved them. And that's another reason why things were crumbling down in Midland, is I used that van, because I was the main driver. I used that van for personal reasons, and they found out about it, and I got in big trouble with them, lost my job. So I was really low, and I had betrayed the Salvation Army, the very people that had helped me so much, and I had betrayed the Foleys and everybody else, and I was just, I felt like I was backed up into a corner, and and still on the syrup. So I had these good reasons for God, for me doing this, and He, I felt the life come back into me just like that. I mean, I stopped shivering immediately, and I felt warm again, and I just thanked the Lord, and I kept on going. I couldn't believe it. I actually still kept going down the highway. it was surreal. I mean, I had no idea where I was going. I was just, Canada was kind of a goal. I never made it there. But that was just sort of a goal in my mind. And I traveled all over the place. I went back when I had finally started living for Jesus and got sober and stuff. I retraced those steps that I took on Google Maps, and I covered like around 12,000 miles. I went all over the place. Washington State, California, Wyoming, Colorado, Arizona, New Mexico, Oregon, Nevada, just everywhere. I went all over the West Coast several times, up and back and forth. And what was really bad about that was my original intention was to get out there away from money and get sober and get my life straightened out. Well, what happened was I started to become homeless, real homeless person, not just a person without a home, but a real mindset of homelessness. And I literally started to own it. You know what I mean? I remember the very first time that I held up a sign. It's called flying a sign. That's what homeless people call it. And I had a journal that I wrote stuff in, and that's what I used for my first sign. And I was so ashamed. I was in California, and I just remember like holding this sign up like, man, this is so humiliating doing this. And somebody helped me. It was real nice of him to do that. He actually put me up in a room and gave me money and took me out to dinner. It was amazing. This guy wasn't even a Christian. It was just like, wow, so kind of that person to do that. And so I traveled extensively out there. I had some very, very difficult times. It was, see, once you get into an attitude or a mindset of homelessness, you don't know how you're going to get out. It's so hard because you automatically go into this place where you're continuously, it's so weird. One of my lights just went out. One of my shop lights. So when you're homeless, you go into this attitude of extreme stress. You're trying to figure out where you're going to go next, where you're going to sleep, how you're going to eat, where you're going to get water, who are you going to run into? Is it going to be dangerous? Are you going to die today? It's just continuous stress. It never ends. And that's why a lot of homeless people are older than they are. They look older. Their skin is leathery and dry, and it ages you like really bad. And just to give you a couple of terrifying examples of what I put myself through as a homeless person. One time I ate out of a dumpster, just totally screwed up. I was hungry. I hadn't had a real meal in so long, and I waited in the alley behind a KFC for them to come out with their trash, and it just sickens me to think of that, what I did. And when I finally got it, it was just so disgusting it was so humiliating. You know, I went so low. I just took this thing so low. Another time, I hadn't showered in like a month, and I was hitchhiking through California, and I got kicked out of a car. I stunk so bad. It was just terrible time. I started to become a homeless person. I started to become, my identity started to change. I started to adopt like Buddhist kind of ideas and New Age ideas and Rastafarian ideas, and my hair started growing out. I started growing a beard, and I started associating more with people that ate like organic food all the time and grew their own food and had dreadlocks and things like that. I started meeting people like that, people that wanted to exit Babylon. So I at some point I did get a guitar, and I started to play guitar for money. The Lord on street corners and anywhere I could play, I'd put my hat out, and I never made very much money at all. And I look back at that, and I think the Lord just gave me enough to survive. Every step of the way, it was just survival, just barely. It was so hard, so incredibly hard. But at some point, and this version is way shorter than my original version. I'm going to try to condense it a little bit. But at some point, I was in California, and I was on my way to something called a rainbow.